people don't merely listen to stories for listening's sake or just to pass time. Accepted, it could be at or for a time of relaxation, but most importantly, people love to listen to stories sake of the morals behind the story, for what they can learn from it, to prevent any further occurrence of the odds, or to emulate the good in the story. So please, in telling us your story, do tell us the morals behind your story. So you can now tell us your name, where you live, and then continue with your story.
But you know where I live. Anyways, my name is Jane and I live here in Lagos. It was the kind of mid-morning in Lagos when the sun seemed too eager to rise, casting harsh shadows and unforgiving truths. The air buzzed with the usual din, Okada weaving through traffic, women shouting prices in the market, and the chaotic song of a city that never paused. But in one of the city affluent suburbs, silence nestled inside the mansion of Madam Ifeoma Ime, a recently widowed woman in her late 30s with grace, quiet strength, and a broken heart. Her husband, Chief Charles Ume, had died only a year ago, leaving behind vast estates, multiple businesses, and over 2 billion naira in various accounts. But more importantly, he left behind their 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. By his carefully drafted will, none of the wealth could be accessed or controlled until the eldest son, Chike, turned 21. He was just 16. It was in this space of grief, uncertainty, and forced patience that Chinedu emerged. At this point, let me tell you a little about Chinedu. In the dusty corners of Ajegunle, where rusted zinc rooftops argue with the sun and the smell of akara mingle with that of diesel, a boy named Chinedu was born into the kind of poverty that made dreams feel like a luxury. The 4th of 5 children in a crammed one-room apartment, Chinedu's world was built on struggle, yet his mind soared above it. From a young age, teachers at local public school praised his brilliance. He had a sharp memory, an eye for numbers, and a tongue that could talk his way out of almost anything. But bros couldn't feed empty stomach. By the time he finished secondary school with flying colors, reality hit. No money for university. His father, a sickly mechanic, barely kept the family afloat. His mother sold plantain by the roadside, but the earnings hardly fed the house, let alone funded education. School no dey put food for table, mama, Chinedu said one day, tossing his textbook aside. Na who book heck? It started with errands, carrying bags for market women, loading cement for builders, but soon he discovered something more profitable: women. Lonely ones, sad ones, older ones with enough money to help a young man who could flatter them just right. Chinedu had a face that made women forget their problems. Light-skinned, with soft eyes and a killer smile. He learned quickly that in the city, charm could be currency. By 22, he was no longer just that intelligent boy from Ajegule. He was fine boy Chinedu, the small talker who always knew what to say. But unlike his peers who learned tailoring, carpentry, or driving to escape poverty, Chinedu rejected all of it. Why sweat when you can smile and eat? He boasts to his friends while putting on clothes gifted by his latest sponsor. His targets were always the same: widows, especially the ones still grieving and needing companionship. You will find them in church, at community meetings, or on Facebook. It started with small talk, offering to help carry groceries, fixing the generator, playing with their kids. Then came the compliments, the emotional manipulation, the late night calls about how you are different from any woman I've ever known. And one by one, they fell. There was Auntie Grace, a 42 years old widow with 2 kids and a boutique in Surulere. Chinedu moved in under the guise of helping her manage things. Before long, her savings began to disappear. Then Madam Lydia, who ran a catering business, he convinced her to buy him a car for Uber. But the car never picked a single passenger. He used it for nightclubs and dates with his next prey. He became a parasite with a pretty face, floating from one woman's couch to another, leaving broken hearts and empty bank accounts behind. But what Chinedu didn't know was that the street always collect their debts. One day, he met Ijeoma, a stunning widow in her mid-30s, recently mourning her husband, a respected lawyer who left behind some properties and insurance. Unlike the others, she was young, soft-spoken, and still emotionally raw, the perfect catch. He played his usual game, offered to help with her son's homework, bought her cheap flowers, show up unannounced with takeaway food he didn't buy himself. She resisted at first, but loneliness is a dangerous silence. Eventually, she opened her door and her heart. They started dating. He moved in, and just like before, he began to make demands. First subtle, then bold. I need a little something to support my new business, he said one morning. I thought you were looking for work, she replied cautiously. Babe, no one is helping me. Everyone is waiting for me to fail. Only you understand me. If you love me, you will support me. She gave in. Once, twice, until she noticed her late husband's life insurance payout had dropped more than she realized. Chinedu, meanwhile, was always on his phone, always outside, always whispering. Suspicious became certainty when her son found Chinedu's messages to another woman, promising her the same love, the same sweet lies. Furious and heartbroken, Ijeoma kicked him out. He laughed as he left, believing he could just find another. But this time, the consequences caught up with him. Ijoma reported him to the police with other women he had defrauded. Charges of fraud, impersonation, and emotional manipulation piled up. Screenshots, account transfers, and testimonies made it easy for the court to decide. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Chinedu's smile faded. No one sent him food. No one replied his calls. The charm that once bought him soft bed and warm arms meant nothing behind bars. And when he finally got out, the street had moved on. No one remembered fine boy Chinedu. He tried begging for work, but his reputation followed him like a shadow. One day, sitting on the same street corner he used to brag on, he met an old friend who chose to help him. He eventually moved in with the friend hoping that Chinedu will join him in his carpentry workshop, not necessarily as an apprentice, which would have been, but as a field salesman. In the course of going about the sales of furniture, lucky shone on him. He met Chief Ume, now late, who gave him a contract running into a few millions. His friend and benefactor rewarded him with a high commission from the business. This was how he got to know Chief Ume and his level of wealth. Eventually, Chinedu being so much better off than when he came out of prison, he resumed his old lifestyle. Just as the saying goes, a leopard cannot change his spots. One rainy morning that slows down both vehicular movement and that of people, news filtered in on the sudden death of a prominent businessman who happens to be Chief Charles Ume, the rich man who gave the furniture contract to Chinedu. In that moody situation in which the feeling of death's cruelty lingers, Chinedu's friend was extremely sad because they have lost a very big client to the fangs of death. But on the other hand, Chinedu has seen an open door, great opportunity to rise and make good money in his usual way as a gigolo. He impatiently waited to see that Mrs. Ume finished mourning her late husband before he swings into action. 3 months gone by, Chinedu started hatching his plan on how to get into the life of Mrs. Ume. He was very strategic, just like a lion who lies in wait for a prey, never misses its target. Having polished himself back to his fine boy Chinedu's level. As we know, Chinedu was everything a broken woman might mistake for healing. Tall, smooth-talking, charming with a dimple smile that could make even the most stoic heart skip. But beneath that polished exterior lay a parasitic hunger, one sharpened by years of being a gigolo. He thrived on loneliness, especially wealthy, lonely women, and he will find his next mark in Madame Ifoma. He didn't approach her directly. No, he knew better. Instead, he found her youngest son, Tobe, after school one day. A lollipop here, a toy car there. Soon, he was a familiar face, a big brother who helped with homework and pushed swings at the estate park. It didn't take long for Ifeoma to notice him and eventually begin to trust him. He is such a kind young man, she told her friend Amarachi one day over lunch. Kind or calculating? Amarachi raised an eyebrow. You are vulnerable now, Ify. Be careful. But love, or what she thought was love, had already begun to blossom. In a moment of weakness, she accepted his affection. His touch was comforting, his words poetic, and in her loneliness, she mistook manipulation for devotion. Within 6 months, they married. It was a quiet ceremony, controversial among her in-laws and secretive to the public. Chinedu, now husband and stepfather, wasted no time unmasking his intentions. It began with small requests, a new car, designer clothes, an expensive wristwatch. Then it escalated, hundreds of thousands in transfers, introduction to her late husband's business contacts, attempt to influence decisions regarding the estate. In the meantime, he is forgotten about his friend who helped him in his down times. So one evening, he raised the issue again about getting involved in the running of the estate. But she reminded him that the will is clear, which you already know. He scoffed. You are his wife. His wealth should be yours now. What kind of foolish will waits for a teenage boy to become a man before his own mother can access funds? Ifeoma froze. That was when it hit her. He never loved her, not once. When she began to say no, Chinedu's affection soured into resentment. His warmth turned cold, his voice sharper. He started drinking, coming home late, even threatening to take what is his by force if she didn't cooperate. Once, she caught him trying to charm her teenage daughter. That was the breaking point. Afraid but determined, she changed the locks, filed for separation, and reported him to the police. Chinedu, furious and desperate, tries to forge her signature on a property document. He was caught and arrested. The media erupted with the scandal. Headlines screamed, "Widow scammed by gigolo husband." But the damage was done. Her children, especially Chike, had lost trust in their mother's judgment. Her social circles whispered, her heart, already grieving her husband, now bore new scars. Yet, from the ashes of her mistake, Ifeoma rebuilt. She joined a foundation for widows, using her story to warn others. Love doesn't come wrapped in desperation, she would say, and loneliness should never be filled with anyone who benefits from your brokenness. As for Chinedu, he served 5 years in prison for fraud and attempted theft. When he was released, the world had forgotten him. Handsome, yes, but a man no one trusted. Moral of the story: true love is patient, selfless, and sincere. Beware of those who flatter you when you are most vulnerable. They often carry daggers behind their smiles. Trust must be earned, not bought with sweet words or false affection. And above all, never let grief blind you to the intention of those who enter your life too easily. And to people like Chinedu, charm without character leads to destruction. A sweet mouth can open doors, but it takes integrity to remain inside. In life, shortcuts often lead to sharp ends, and living off others will never replace the dignity that comes from honest work.